Good morning, everyone. Well, the first thing I want to mention to you this morning is that when you hear that teachers are behind comprehensive sexuality education, or that teachers agree with the sexualization of children, that's a huge deception. So I'm here to speak out for America's real teachers today. America's real teachers are deeply disturbed by the sexualization of our children. And it is over-sexualization, and it is happening in America's schools. But America's real teachers have been silenced and bullied by the very organization that is pushing the sexualization of children, that is, labor unions. And these labor unions have silenced teachers for about 60 years. They've collected billions from us annually, tax-free, to push their sexual, social, and political agenda into our classrooms and onto our country. They claim to represent teachers, but they have bullied us and silenced us. And I will show you some examples of that this morning. The teachers' unions have actually I think for the rest of the morning I will not refer to them as teachers' unions. They do not deserve that respect or honor. They don't even really deserve the honor of unions, but we will call them unions who masquerade as teachers and masquerade as experts. They are neither. So these unions have literally been attacking the very virtues that teachers cherish. The National Education Association was originally started by teachers like myself in the 1800s. Why did they start it? To help children better learn Judeo-Christian virtues. I don't have time to show you the evidence today, but I have little booklets that they created that were actually full of prayers and scripture and stories of heroism and courage, Judeo-Christian virtues. And the teachers' unions, the unions, came in and undermined it all. They have used the teaching profession to gain unfettered access to America's children. So when you hear teachers support this, please say, no, that's a lie. Union activists masquerading as teachers support this. Real teachers are horrified. They agree with you, parents. Do not allow unions to divide us any longer. They've been dividing parents and teachers for decades. Let's stop that today. So during my career, I was a teacher in California for 28 years. The only reason I'm not in the classroom today with my precious little students whom I miss so much it hurts is because I'm fighting this battle. Because if someone doesn't fight it for teachers and kids, it's going to continue. So during my career, because I couldn't make my voice heard, I started fighting from within the union, thinking none of my teacher friends agree with this whole nightmare, so maybe we can stop it from the inside. Well, it didn't go very well, as you can imagine. But I witnessed a lot that helped me to understand what's going on, and it made me a better plaintiff when we brought our case against the unions. Here's what I witnessed. I would go to state-level teacher conferences. I never saw anything that had anything to do with a labor union representing teachers. I never saw anything that had to do with being a great teacher. When I tried to get help for my special ed students, I could get no help. Here's what I saw. Rooms full of expo tables that were pushing Planned Parenthood, gay straight alliance clubs, all kinds of rainbow, just everything you can think of that has to do with LGBT advocacy or far left politics. I witnessed as teachers were wined and dined, and if you agreed to start a gay straight alliance on your campus, you can get big money. You can also get big money to push LGBT activism in the classroom. But can you get money to actually do something to help your students? No. Can you get support as a union leader for your colleagues? No. But you can get all kinds of help for LGBTQ activism. You can also attend wild parties at all of these union events full of all kinds of very expensive alcohol and food off the backs of middle-class teachers who have no idea they're funding this. I read business items. I have read thousands of business items passed by teachers' unions. I said it again. They're not teachers' unions. By unions, none of them. Well, maybe 2 or 3 would have to do with children, but they're labor unions. So their business items shouldn't have anything to do with children. They should have to do with labor. So most of their business items are about far left politics, LGBT agenda, divisive narratives. Every divisive word you hear or see in our culture was first mentioned, made up inside the unions. At NEA representative assemblies, I have teacher friends who have been fighting against the over-sexualization of our children for over 30 years. Over 30 years. Here's how they've been treated. They would go into, up to the podium to speak against the over-sexualization of children or just to ask for balance in the curriculum. My friends have been spit upon. They have been screamed at. Screamed while they're speaking screamed at while they're speaking on the podium. Their way has been blocked when they try to get back to their seat. They have been barred from serving on sex ed and health committees, and they have literally 2 of my friends were told there's a special place in hell for people like you. This is how America's loving teachers are treated by labor unions. This summer, my teacher friends, who still go to every NEA representative assembly as retired teachers, and some of them still serve inside, even though they're beat up. This is a quote that one of them sent to me, that they went to the NEA event, and there was a drag queen event, which used 3 ballrooms. Teachers paid for this. Here's the quote. The drag queen show began with a huge, muscular man in a sequin vest over a bare chest, belting out descriptions and positions of masturbation. There were little children and even a baby in the room. And this is how they entertained teachers. What they're doing is trying to indoctrinate teachers and tell teachers this is normal behavior and you should push this. These are the people who are pushing this sexual agenda, not loving teachers. One precious teacher told me that during her new teacher workshops, she was forced to share intimate sexual details of her life. When she shared that she is a virgin because she is not married and she is a Christian, they laughed at her and shamed her. So teachers are bullied on every level, and we are horrified at the instruction we are being told to teach to your children. Here are just a few examples. We're told to teach children of their sexual rights, that they should have pleasure at all ages, sexual pleasure. That out of wedlock sex with anyone you want is just fine from any age. And hey, you shouldn't think you're not bisexual or homosexual. Don't knock it till you try it. We are told that the number 1 goal that we are to teach children is to prevent pregnancy. Think about that. It's not to hold off until marriage. We're not to teach them that, you can get a lot of diseases if you're sleeping around. No, it's don't get pregnant. Just prevent pregnancy. And forgive me for telling you this, but we are told to teach children how to use condoms by bringing in fully erect penis models for them to manipulate, 10 and 11-year-olds. All of this has to be done in mixed company because we are told to tell the children as young as 4, your parents didn't know your gender when you were born, so they assigned you a gender. There's really a huge spectrum, ever-growing spectrum of genders. You will figure out your gender someday. That, I'll say it, is child abuse. It's also the abuse of parents. It's also religious abuse. Thank you. And one last highlight, we are told we have to tell children how and where to obtain birth control, including the morning after pill and abortion, without parental knowledge or permission from age 12. The details are so inappropriate that I cannot even mention them to you today. I've been asked not to say these things, but they're being said to our children in America's schools. That is evil. I have 3 chapters in my book, Standing Up to Goliath, if you'd like some more details. Now, the unions and their friends knew that teachers would never, ever teach this. So they've written into the laws that if teachers are unqualified, then the experts will come in and teach it, and Planned Parenthood will abuse your children. I would like to assert today that Planned Parenthood is not the expert on children. Neither are any of these other people pushing an agenda. Parents are the experts on their children. So teachers and families are in crisis. And I want to share with you a few highlights on a PowerPoint of how the unions have done this, how they have undermined parents and teachers. Before I show that, just a couple highlights. In 1960s, the National Education Association bullied the PTA so severely that the PTA took a stance of neutrality. Ever since the 60s, the PTA has not been allowed to take a stance opposite of the teachers' unions. So that's why they support everything the unions tell them to support. And I have a quote in my book of a union leader saying, "We use the PTA as a front." The unions have taken over the Librarians Association, they have taken over the School Boards Association, they have taken over every angle of our schools. So the unions are the real existential threat. They have silenced teachers, and they do it by using deceit, intimidation, and massive power. Let me just show you a few slides. So the National Education Association adopted this amendment to science education. They basically obliterated the scientific method. So they said that the NEA believes that the content in science education must be based on, you can see in yellow, that's what they crossed out. These are their strikeouts. They struck out empirical evidence derived from valid scientific experimentation. And they changed it to what I've highlighted for you in green and what they underscored. Scientific theory that incorporates empirically collected, so you can see it yourself. The entire process leads towards scientific consensus. And then they bully and shun anyone who doesn't agree with their consensus. This is how they undermine science. Then they bully teachers like myself by saying that they will not accept exhibitors whose messaging is in conflict with those changes. And then my teacher friends who started an NEA ex-gay educators caucus because the unions bully ex-gays. They bully them heavily. Shame on them. And they bully Christians. Their real goal is to remove our Judeo-Christian virtues. So you can see from this one, I'm going to use a little pointer, that if you dare to bring in information on creation truth or ex-gays, you are considered offensive, obscene, and in bad taste. That's how the unions feel about us. The unions passed a sex education resolution. I'm not showing you all of it. You can feel free to take pictures. But I want you to note this part, that teachers and health professionals must be qualified to teach in this area and must be legally protected from censorship and lawsuits. Why? Because we all want to sue them and silence them. How do they enforce this? Well, the National Education Association works in partnership with the Southern Poverty Law Center, NAACP, ACLU, Gelson, all these human rights, all of them, blah, 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 to, there's the words, homophobia, transphobia. They're going to track all incidences of all this, and they are going to eradicate hate. We've all seen the hate map. It's loaded with Christian organizations, conservative organizations. So they're going to eradicate us. And the frightening thing is that when parents and teachers and school boards push back, it's the ACLU that comes in and says, we're going to sue you. Here is a toolkit that Southern Poverty Law Center and ACLU and others, Gelson, helped the teachers' unions create. This toolkit is pages and pages. You can find it on the CTA website. Children can actually report their classmates and teachers to the Southern Poverty Law Center as haters. There are direct links to SPLC. It's Orwellian. These are just some posters that teachers can hang in their classrooms. The one I'd like to point out the most to you is this one, because it'll help you to understand that the sex ed is not the only problem unions are pushing. Every single divisive narrative in this country is pushed, funded, organized by the unions. If you're being bullied and people are screaming at you, and especially if they're screaming the F word at you, you can bet the unions organized it with my money. But if you'll look at this poster, it says Black Lives Matter. It says women's rights are human rights. No human is illegal. Science is real. Love is love. Kindness is everything. It means exactly the opposite of what it says. Okay, so there we go. Teachers' unions used my money to pass transgender bathrooms and locker rooms. I don't know one teacher or parent that agrees with this, but want to point out to you that they are bragging that they were able to get transgender students into the restrooms and locker rooms of their choice, and that this was supported by teacher and parent organizations, including the California PTA and the California Teachers Association. Why would the PTA support that? Because they don't. They've been silenced. This is a magazine that I was forced to fund for 28 years. California Educator, you can see that we're embracing the spectrum of genders and learning the new pronouns. Teachers are now losing their jobs if they don't use the pronouns. Bless this child. This is a little boy who feels that he is a girl. And so they highlight Lily's story, and Lily is, has a spectrum of genders. This is what the unions really do with teacher money. So I'd like to state that the unions are 100% out of their jurisdiction. Their jurisdiction is to be labor unions. If you are a policy person in this room today, would you please help me to end government unions? They do not belong in our government or our schools or anywhere that's taxpayer funded. They are destroying academic rigor, excellence, science, and they are purposely undermining Judeo-Christian virtues, American virtues, which are essential for a free republic. So I've been asked today to share with you what gave me the courage to fight, to take the case to the Supreme Court. Well, I was voiceless. I fought within the school system for 28 years and could get nowhere. Children, families, and teachers were being harmed continually. And it was God. One day, God just laid it on my heart to start writing editorials to expose this nightmare. And I was afraid. I wasn't afraid to write or tell my story, but I was afraid of newspapers rejecting me. And so the Lord led me to the widow's mite. And he told me, well, I'll tell you the story. The widow's mite, I think it's 2 verses. This widow puts 2 mites in the offering. It's like 2 pennies. And Jesus points her out to his disciples and says, that woman just gave more than all the wealthy because she gave in her faith. She gave from nothing. And so he just laid on my heart, just give me what you got, girl. I'll do the rest. Newspapers are my problem. So I did. And within 6 months of my first editorial, I was lead plaintiff in a national lawsuit suing the people I just wanted to expose in the Orange County Register. And today I have a piece in foxnews.com. I hope you'll read it. I've also been asked to give advice to parents and others on what you should do if you're afraid or if you're not sure how to fight the battle. So my advice is give what you've got. God will do the rest. Live what you believe. Do you believe in the golden rule? Do unto others as you'd have them do unto you? Would you want someone sexualizing you as a child? Would you want to be a teacher who's bullied every day and can't teach anymore? Stand up. Follow the golden rule. And remember, they called us David versus Goliath in our case, and that gave me a lot of courage. Why? David won. You got it. So if you're feeling like David, get your 5 smooth stones and start hurling them. Last thing I'd just like to share with you is this Adopt a Teacher flyer. Our organization just created Adopt a Teacher. It's our way of saying, please, would you help us? Everyone knows a teacher, especially teachers in your churches or your synagogues. Put your arm around them, love them, hand them a copy of our book, Standing Up to Goliath. We wrote it to expose the deceits of the union and to help teachers to stop this nightmare. Teachers do not know that they are funding this nightmare. They have no idea. And if they just stopped, because they were forced for 50 years, they're not forced anymore, but they don't know that either. Help us educate them. Our schools are on fire. Our kids are inside. Unions are the flames. Teachers have no idea. So let's get teachers out of unions. Let's get unions out of our schools. Thank you.